The Patriots make it 6 straight wins, a very ugly game yesterday, and a 1-point victory over the Atlanta Falcons at Gillette Stadium to open the month of November. Good afternoon, almost. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Here from the Keene State Podcast Studio, I'm your host, Ryan Goodwin. It's Monday, November 3rd, and we are here with episode 6 of the Monster and the Lighthouse podcast. I apologize, it is actually very late morning, 11:31, as I start this recording today. My watch is still set on daylight savings time, so I'm going to have to update that. It says right now that it's 12:34. It's a few minutes ahead, so I knew that. But, of course, we set the clocks back to start yesterday to start Sunday morning and gain an extra hour of sleep, although it does mean now that it's getting dark before 5 o'clock, so I'm not exactly thrilled with that. But nonetheless, here we are today on this Monday afternoon, and we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to obviously recap the Patriots' 1-point victory, 24-23 over the Atlanta Falcons yesterday at Gillette Stadium. Also going to talk a little bit about just how outstanding the 2025 World Series was, and we'll talk about the ending of that on Saturday night. And also going to talk maybe a little bit about the upcoming trade deadline, which is, of course, coming up tomorrow in the NFL, Tuesday, November 4th. So we will discuss that a little bit as well, and maybe talk about where the Patriots go as far as the trade deadline goes, and also my predictions. Are they going to be super aggressive, or are they going to kind of lay back because maybe it's year one of Mike Vrabel, obviously, and the Patriots are doing very well at 7-2, but maybe not quite going for a deep playoff run quite yet. We'll see what happens. But anyway, we're going to talk about that all and more in today's episode of The Monster and the Lighthouse. So welcome back, everybody. The last time we did this was last Wednesday. Of course, I wasn't here on Friday, but I plan on doing the Monday-Friday schedule, I guess, this week. I think that's a good way to do it because Monday we can talk a little bit, we can recap the last week's game the day after, so we get kind of the fresh takes on that. And then on Friday we can kind of predict or, preview the next week of NFL games, as well as the next Patriots game, which would be coming up in just a couple days from Friday. All right, so let's start with the top news of the day. The New England Patriots get the victory over the Atlanta Falcons by 1 point, and it all came down to a missed extra point. That was the difference in the game from at least in the preseason, Patriot kicker John Parker Romo for the Falcons misses the 33-yard extra point, and that with about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, after the Falcons would have tied the game at 24 apiece on a beautiful one-handed catch for a touchdown on fourth down by Drake London. And we'll talk a little bit about Drake London today. The former USC guy burned the Patriots yesterday for 3 touchdowns. It was not a pretty game for the Patriots. I'll just say that. It was looking very good at the start. The Patriots won the toss, and as they typically did during the Belichick era, and I always think is the smart thing to do, they deferred to the second half, so Atlanta got the ball first to open the game. And for once, just the third time this season in the first 9 games, the Patriots did not allow an opening drive score from an opponent. So that was a positive sign. They didn't even allow a first down to the Falcons. I believe the Falcons actually went backwards a couple of yards on their opening drive, and they forced a very quick 3-and-out from Michael Penix Jr. and the Atlanta Falcons offense. And that's the thing. Heading into last week, we weren't really certain about who was going to be at the QB spot for Atlanta. Michael Penix suffered a leg injury and missed all of the Dolphins game. The Falcons had to start their backup, longtime veteran Kirk Cousins. So we thought, I thought even on last week's podcast, and I mistakenly predicted that it was going to be Kirk Cousins in at QB for the Falcons, but it was not. It was Michael Penix, their regular starter. The second straight week and the third lefty quarterback that the Patriots have faced this year, which is kind of weird because really before this season, the only prominent left-handed quarterback in the league for a while was Tua Tagovailoa, and that was it. But now we have three lefty starters. We have Tua, all in the AFC, or excuse me, not all in the AFC, one in the NFC with Penix. We have Tua, Dylan Gabriel, who the Patriots, of course, faced last week with Cleveland, and now Michael Penix. And Penix, to his credit, did not play a horrible game yesterday. The Patriots weren't exactly the best at, and look at the total stats. Penix yesterday was 22 of 37 for 221, and he did have the 3 TDs. He did not throw an interception. And piggybacking off of that, we're now going to go into how did Drake May look yesterday. Well, not overall the best day for Drake May, although his numbers are not horrible. Even with that still, 19 of 29, 259. He had 2 touchdown passes, so overall still in the good there. But the bad thing was a bad interception, kind of a miscommunication to one of his receivers, and he threw it. And so not good there. And he had 2 total turnovers because he also turned it over with a strip sack that set up Atlanta for a touchdown right before halftime. And let's just talk about how the game went. I mean, the Patriots, again, they stopped the Falcons. They got a very quick 3-and-out out of Atlanta's offense. That was positive because, again, the last number of games we've seen the Patriots typically fall behind early in the game, and then they've, picked it up. They've answered with a touchdown drive or something like that, and they've got the momentum back. But we've seen that too much from the Patriots this year from their defense of just letting up these opening drive scores for other teams, even if it's a field goal, just letting up points for the opponent right away and falling behind. That's something that Mike Vrabel has talked about that they're really going to have to clean up. And to their credit, their defense did on the opening drive. They forced a 3-and-out from Penix, so Atlanta punts. The Patriots have a very nice opening drive. They go down the field, and Drake May gets his first TD pass of the day. He hits Demario Pop Douglas, or they call him Pop Douglas. Hits Demario Douglas for a nice TD pass from 17 yards out. And we found out after the game yesterday that Douglas's uncle, I believe, was shot and unfortunately killed on Saturday night. So an emotional day for him. But Douglas actually had a career day yesterday, the day after that tragedy. So nice to see there. He hits Douglas from 17 yards out, so that was good. But then Atlanta answers. If I remember, the Patriots forced, I think, another Falcons punt. Then the Patriots get the ball up 7 with a chance to kind of add on to their lead, but they cannot, so they punt it right back to Atlanta. And to end out the first quarter, Atlanta would have a nice drive. They would go down the field, and Penix would hit Drake London from just a yard out, but kind of a fade route play. In the corner of the end zone. London would get the jump ball over Marcus Jones, the AFC Defensive Player of the Month in October. He would catch it right over Marcus Jones, and Jones obviously is not a big guy. That was an unfortunate mismatch for Marcus Jones and Drake London. That was something that we saw as the game went on. The Patriots moved their top cornerback, Christian Gonzalez, onto Drake London, and that was definitely a better matchup. Gonzalez obviously a lot taller than Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones not a very big guy. So good to see the Patriots kind of adjust there mid-game. But he got burned on that one as Penix hit him again on the fade route for a 1-yard TD pass, the first of 3 on the day for Drake London, as we'll talk about in a little bit. So that tied the game at 7. The extra point that time from Parker Romo was good. The Patriots answered, though, in the second quarter. They had a nice drive in the final seconds of the first, heading into the second with 8:52 to go before the half. Terrell Jennings, the guy that the Patriots brought up from the practice squad because of the injury to Ramondre Stevenson this week, foot injury or toe injury to Stevenson. Terrell Jennings got his first NFL touchdown, a 3-yard score for the Patriots after a nice long drive from New England and took some time off the clock. They went up 14-7. Atlanta would then go 3-and-out. They would punt the ball again. The Patriots would get it right back. And in short order, just past 3 minutes removed from that Terrell Jennings touchdown, Drake May would hit Stephon Diggs for his second touchdown as a Patriot and the second in as many weeks. He got his first last week against Cleveland, and he would get another one yesterday, 11 yards out, and I was happy because he was on my fantasy football team, so that was also some points as well. 11-yard TD to Stephon Diggs after he made a nice juke move, and then ran it and dove, hitting the pylon with the ball for the score from 11 yards out. So that made it 21-7. Of course, Andy Borregales was good on all of his kicks yesterday, including the extra points, which might not seem significant, but we'll talk about in a little bit. It ended up being pretty significant for Atlanta. And, again, the Patriots at this point in the game, they're up 2 scores now. It's 21-7. You're starting to think this might turn into like a similar game as last week with Cleveland, where it ends up becoming a blowout in pretty short order. And it was looking good. The Patriots had the ball right before halftime and were, I think, right at like midfield and had a chance to get into field goal range for Andy Borregales to try to make it a 17-point game maybe before the half. You're in full control, up 24-7 if that's the case. And even if you don't get any points, you're still up 2 scores. And the Patriots would also receive the second half kick as well with the deferral in the first half. So that was a positive. You're looking at another opportunity, another week of where the Patriots can score points before the half. They can do the old school double dip. They get maybe 3 at least before half like they did against Cleveland. And they have the lead at half. And then, out of the halftime break, they get the ball first and they maybe go down the field and add on to their lead. But that did not happen because a strip sack of Drake May really shifted momentum all of a sudden going into the half. Atlanta ran the ball all the way down on the recovery down to the New England 6-yard line. So it set up 1st and goal for Penix and the Falcons offense with time on the board. And Penix would end up hitting Drake London for his second score of the day with 12 seconds to go before the half. That time from 2 yards out for London. And that made the score 21-14 at halftime. And all of a sudden, the momentum had shifted. The Patriots, it really felt like dominated the first half, but we're only leading by a touchdown, and you're starting to feel nervous. Again, we talk about how it was an ugly game yesterday. That was one of the big reasons why, the turnovers. Drake May, with the first turnover of the day for him there with the strip sack, he's got to do a better job of, I think, protecting the football in that case because he only had kind of one hand on the football. He didn't have 2. Wasn't really holding it tight, and defender just made a smart play, knocked it out, and guy picked it up, ran it back to the 6 of New England, and it set up the Falcons score right before the half. So out of the second half, the Patriots got the ball first, and they had another long drive down the field. They took off a significant amount of time, 15-minute quarters, so they took off about 8.5 minutes on that drive off the clock. And they did get down to the red zone. In fact, I think they got into a goal-to-go situation, but once again, their goal-to-go offense this year has really struggled. And they struggled again because Drake May got sacked, I think all the way back to like just shy of the 20-yard line. And that set up a 32-yard attempt for Andy Borregales. He would hit it dead center from 32. And credit to Borregales because he had some shakiness at the beginning of the season, but he's really been pretty reliable this year for the Patriots. Has a huge leg. And, just credit to him. Obviously nailed the huge 52-yarder to beat the Bills in Buffalo. But, he was a question mark. I think their kicking was a question mark. But for now, at least, Borregales, I don't want to jinx it, but Borregales looks pretty good right now. And granted, it's only a 32-yarder, but we've seen shakiness before out of Patriot kickers from that distance, especially a couple of years ago with Chad Ryland. Even last year, they had Joey Sly last year, and he would nail kicks from he hit one from 60, I remember, in San Francisco last year. But yeah, he could be unreliable at times too. But thankfully, Borregales nailed it from 32. So the Patriots, kind of unfortunate. You were thinking they were going to go up 2 scores or 2 touchdowns again, 28-14. but it ended up instead being a field goal. So at least once again, it's a two-score game. They're up 10, 24-14. The Falcons would drive down the field late in the third quarter into the the first minute of the fourth. But thankfully for New England, their drive would stall in the red zone. So Parker Romo would be forced to try a 38-yard field goal. He would hit it. So the Patriot lead was cut back down to 7 once again, 24-17. And the Patriots, again, had plenty of chances to, on offense, kind of put this game away in the fourth quarter, and they just couldn't do it. And if I remember correctly, I think this is when that next drive might have been when Drake May threw that interception. I honestly would have to go back and watch the highlights. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but it was just a bad miscommunication between him and his receiver. He threw the ball over the middle, and there was nobody home on the receiving end, but the defender was right there to scoop it up before it hit the turf and get a turnover for the Falcons. The second turnover of the day by the Patriots offense, both on Drake May. One, obviously, the fumble lost, and the other, now that interception. So not a great day, not the best day, certainly, for Drake May. It was a very ugly game for the Patriots, but the good thing was that they were able to pull it out in the end. But we're not done recapping this yet because the Patriots had opportunities to put this game away. But with 4 minutes and 40 seconds to go, well, obviously there was a decent-sized drive leading up to it. But the Falcons, I believe, converted on, was it a couple fourth downs? I don't know. Penix hit Drake London, I remember, to the 10-yard line. That was either third and long or fourth and long. I can't remember. But the Falcons hit Drake London to keep the drive alive. And then once again, Penix would go to London for a touchdown for the third time in the game. Drake London's third touchdown. And this one was just a great one-handed catch. And it was on a 4th and 7, too. The Patriots had a chance to get off the field, still up 7 points. But the Falcons, of course, going for it with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left. They don't want to try a field goal. That doesn't really do them any good. They would still need a touchdown to take the lead. If they got the touchdown, if they got the field goal, that would only cut it to a 4-point game at 24-20. So they go for the juggler, they go for the touchdown, and they get it. A one-handed catch on 4th and 7 from Drake London from 8 yards out. And it was just a good catch by London, right over the defender. And the Falcons appeared at that moment to have tied the game, but not so fast because, of course, you still have the extra point. And the extra points, obviously, since about 10 or so years ago when they moved where the ball is snapped to the 15-yard line, it's about a 32, 33-yard kick. So you would expect most kickers to be able to hit that. I mean, it's still a chip shot by all accounts, pretty much. Maybe mid-range field goal, but most kickers obviously are pretty accurate from that distance. But the point is, though, is that the extra point is not nearly as much of a gimme as it used to be. Obviously, the college rules, it's still snapped from the 2-yard line, which used to be the NFL rules as well. So it was almost impossible in the old days to miss an extra point, only about a 19, 20-yard field goal, and, of course, lined up, perfectly. But not anymore, and it ended up biting the Falcons yesterday because Parker Romo, as we talked about earlier, misses the extra point from 33 yards out. He pushes it wide right, and at the moment, that keeps the Patriots in front by, it is just 1 point, but that's a big point because the Patriots now are going to get the ball back, and they have a chance to ice the game, basically, if they can get a few first downs and just bleed the clock out, and they can win the game. But that did not happen. That's what I think some people are going to forget from yesterday because of Parker Romo's missed extra point. But the Patriots actually went 3 and out on the next drive and promptly punted the ball back to the Falcons. So Atlanta, even with the missed extra point, all they needed was a field goal, and they would edge the Patriots in the final minutes. And I'm going to be honest, when I was watching yesterday, I thought that's what was going to happen. I'm like, this is not good. Like, the Patriots are going to find a way to lose this game, blow this game up 10 in the fourth quarter, and we would not be having as fun a mood today as we're having this morning on this show. But that did not happen. The Falcons did get a few first downs, and they moved the ball just past midfield. So probably only about 10, 15 yards away from a long field goal try from Parker Romo to try to win the game. But thankfully, the Falcons' drive stalled around midfield, and it kind of culminated in a bad intentional grounding penalty against Michael Penix. I don't mean it was a bad call. I mean, it was not a good idea for Michael Penix. He threw the ball kind of to nobody to try to avoid a sack, and as a result, it ended up drawing a flag. So that set up, and of course, with the intentional grounding, that was on 2nd and 10. The intentional grounding is a 10-yard penalty, and then on top of the 10-yard penalty, it's also a loss of down, which is the biggest thing. So instead of 2nd and 20, which is still not good, but you still get the extra down, it was 3rd and 20, and I believe Penix threw an incompletion there. Yeah, he definitely threw an incompletion because they didn't gain anything. It ended up being 4th and 20 with just over, I think it was like exactly 2:03 to play, so just before the 2-minute warning. And instead of going for it on 4th and 20, obviously it's not a situation like 3rd and 20 where you can try to get a chunk play and maybe try to still, you can try to get a chunk play and cut it to like 4th and 10 or something instead of, 4th and super long like it was. The Falcons don't get anything, so head coach for the Falcons, Raheem Morris, instead of trying to go for it on 4th and 20 from their own side of the field, he opts to punt it and try to pin the Patriots deep and get a stop, get a very quick 3 and out, and then get the ball back. But there was a catch, though, because earlier in the game, there was a mishap by the Falcons after, both teams obviously each half get 3 timeouts. The Falcons were able to get an automatic first down on a Patriots penalty. But then right before they snapped the ball, the play clock was about to hit 0, so Raheem Morris had to go over to the official charging and call a timeout. So the Falcons had to use a timeout earlier in the 4th quarter, and as a result, they only had 2 timeouts. So obviously they got the 2-minute warning right after the punt to Marcus Jones, which Jones actually made a smart play, and I thought about this when it happened. He, instead of taking a fair catch, opted to return it. And I think he would have fair caught it at like their own 10-yard line, but instead he opted to return it. Now, obviously, he wanted to break it for a big return, but it was also a smart idea because it took a few extra seconds off the clock for Atlanta, and the 2-minute warning ended up happening, I think, that whole punt play lasted 10 seconds. So it took 10 seconds off the clock from 2:03 all the way down to 1:53. And Atlanta, of course, still had their 2 timeouts, but that was very smart because the Patriots, are obviously going to keep the ball on the ground at least for the first 2 plays, make the Falcons use their last 2 timeouts, which they did, to stop the clock. And the Falcons did. They held the Patriots. I think it was Terrell Jennings on both of the carry, or at least on the first carry. They held the Patriots to minimal gains. The Pats, I think, got 5 yards on the first 2 plays, so it set up a 3rd and 5. And then you're thinking, are the Patriots going to keep the ball on the ground? And, because if they keep the ball on the ground, obviously the clock's not going to stop. The clock's going to keep running. You obviously have the play clock, which is 40 seconds, so you can only run it down 40 seconds. But you're thinking they could maybe run it down to under a minute and then punt the ball away. But you're still giving the Falcons, obviously, a chance with the ball in that situation, and you don't want it to come down to your defense, especially when the Falcons only need a field goal. It's not like they needed a touchdown. If they needed a touchdown, I think the Patriots would have just run it on 3rd and 5 and let that happen and then just punt the ball away. Try to pin the Falcons as deep as you can and needing a touchdown with under a minute to go. So obviously you're putting them in a bad spot there. But only with a field goal, it's not quite that simple. So anyway, instead of running it on 3rd and 5, the Patriots run a well-executed, very smart play call from Josh McDaniels, to his credit. He's obviously done a very nice job this year with the offense. You see the leaps that Drake May has made this year in year 2 from last year, and it's great. I mean, Drake May is, arguably a, I'd say he's definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. And a lot of that is thanks to, not even arguably, I'd say he is a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. And I think a lot of that Some of that is thanks to Josh McDaniels, certainly. So McDaniels draws up a nice play. The Patriots, Hunter Henry kind of running open over the middle. May hits him going to his left and hits him, maybe not quite in stride, but Henry has enough space to where he could run for the first down. And then eventually he wisely slides down inbounds, and that would clinch the game for the Patriots. They would take a couple kneels, and that would be the game. The Patriots would hold on for their sixth straight win to go to 7-2 on the year in year 2 of Drake May and year 1 of Mike Vrabel as head coach. So the Patriots are 7-2 coming out of the first weekend of November. And this week they're going to have a tough test as they're going to have to go down to South Florida, to Tampa to take on or maybe not South Florida, Central Florida, I guess, although on the Gulf Coast, to Tampa, Florida to take on Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. So we're going to preview that game a little bit more on Friday, of course, as we get closer to it. But today I really, as usual on Mondays, another victory Monday for the Patriots. Just want to kind of talk about what I felt about the game yesterday. And obviously I didn't feel great. The Patriots did have a few injuries as well. Christian Ellis went down. Christian Gonzalez went down as well. Came off the field due to, I think, concussion protocols. He hit his head on a deep pass to Drake London that London caught, and came off the field with concussion concerns. It does seem like he's going to be okay, though, because he responded after yesterday's game, I think, with a tweet saying he feels like he's okay. He did pass concussion protocol, but I think the Patriots were playing it safe in the final minutes of the game. So I think Christian Gonzalez, thankfully, is going to be okay. But yeah, another big injury, though, hopefully will not be long-term, is Kayshon Boutte. And it felt like yesterday that Drake May was really missing Kayshon Boutte for a lot of that game. He obviously hit Douglas for some nice downfield completions. He hit Hunter Henry a few times for some nice bigger completions, including one drive. I remember he hit him a couple of 3rd and long situations. He hit him for first downs. And then I think he hit Austin Hooper for a nice gain once in the game as well. So he does love hitting his tight ends. But he also hit Demario Douglas for some nice completions. He hit Trayvon Henderson a few times out of the backfield. I thought Henderson had a good day yesterday. Of course, no touchdowns to show for it, but he had some nice runs. 14 carries for him for 55 yards. So overall, that's just under 5 yards a carry. That's a pretty good day. And then, they did use Terrell Jennings as well a handful of times with the absence of Ramondre Stevenson. And, of course, Jennings was the one who ended up having the touchdown, their only rushing touchdown of the day from 3 yards out. And also his first NFL touchdown, as we mentioned earlier. What are the takeaways from yesterday? Well, the good thing is that the Patriots were able to win an ugly game. A very ugly game. I mean, the first half of the Cleveland game last week was also ugly, but then obviously they blew it open in the third quarter, kind of like the Titans game the week before that on the road. Again, kind of close in the first half, but the Patriots blew it open in the third quarter. But yesterday was ugly pretty much all the way. It looked like the Patriots were going to have a blowout win earlier on in the game. When they went up 21-7, you were feeling pretty good about that, but that didn't end up happening. And a lot of it was because of their own mistakes. It was because of the strip sack on Drake May. It was because of the interception, the bad pick that May threw. Drake May didn't have his best day yesterday, but I think the good thing is that the Patriots are finding ways to win those types of games because your quarterback's not always going to have his best stuff every day. Your whole team is not always going to have their best stuff every day either. And I know Atlanta wasn't a great team coming in. They were 3-4, coming off a horrendous loss at home to Miami. But the Patriots were, I think, clearly off their game yesterday. But they still found a way. They still found a way to grind out a very tough win. And a win is a win on the board. It's not like college football as much where there's style points and, it's all about rankings and, if you don't blow out a team that you're supposed to, or you don't beat a team by whatever the spread is for that week, then, you might fall, you might stay where you're ranked, or you might even fall a rank or two if you don't beat up enough on a team. That's not how it works in the NFL. I know like certain wins look better than others, and certainly the Patriots have had better wins than they had yesterday. But, they found a way to get it done. And yeah, I mean, you got to be happy. I mean, they've won six straight games, excuse me. They're heading into a very tough matchup this week down in Tampa with the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. But you feel better certainly going into that game at 7-2 than you do it if you were at 6-3. I'm not saying 6-3 is bad, but especially considering the way they might have lost that game yesterday, if they did, you'd be feeling a little bit worse. So props to the Pats, props to Mike Vrabel and Drake May once again, and props to the Patriots defense. They played very well yesterday. I know 23 points, but at least 7 or at least 6 of those points were not really on them. It's hard to stop a team when they're set up with 1st and goal at the 6-yard line coming off a turnover. So really those points for the Falcons you can credit to their defense. So, I mean, it wasn't a bad game at all played by the Pats defense yesterday. I thought they did a relatively good job of handling Penix. He is a guy that can run a little bit at times if he needs to, and we saw that a few times. He got out of trouble, and he eluded a lot of sacks. The Patriots do need to do a better job, though, I think, of getting pressure on quarterbacks. I don't think they've done enough of it to this point in the season. And I also think another concern maybe going forward for the Patriots is the offensive line. Another week where Drake May got sacked a ton. He got sacked a ton last week against Cleveland. Obviously, Myles Garrett was responsible for most of those. And Myles Garrett, you could argue, is the best defensive player in the league. I know he's on a horrible team like Cleveland, but he's awesome. He's a great player. He's a guy that you want to have. But, this week, not as many studs on the Falcons defensive line as there are certainly with Myles Garrett on Cleveland. And they have some other good players as well. But, Atlanta's defense is not horrible. I know they let up 34 to Miami, but the NFL can definitely be week to week sometimes. I mean, we saw this week Miami just get absolutely shut out by Baltimore pretty much, losing 28-6 on Thursday night. So, that can happen. But yeah, definitely something to watch out for going forward. I thought Will Campbell had another really good day. Didn't really allow many pressures on the offensive line. But, the line is something to look out for the Patriots, and I hope maybe they get a reinforcement before tomorrow. We'll see what happens, though, as far as the trade deadline goes. I talked about that a little bit longer than I thought I was going to, so maybe, I don't know, could talk a little bit about the trade deadline, but I honestly, part of me doesn't really think the Patriots are going to be that active. I would like them to be more active. I would like them to go out and get a guy that they have under team control maybe for a few years, because that's the thing. It's not just about getting a rental piece for this year, kind of like in baseball. It's about getting a guy that you have team control over for the next few years, because the Patriots are trying to build something right now. And it feels like, it certainly feels like they're ahead of schedule this year with their record at being at 7-2 with the rebuild. But that is what Mike Vrabel came here to do. And that was to build this Patriots team. This had been a horrible team the last 2 years. Definitely bottom feeders in the NFL. And that's what he came here to do. And obviously he's already surpassed easily their win totals from the last 2 years. If the Patriots win this coming weekend, they're going to tie their amount of wins from the last 2 years combined, which obviously the last 2 years they've only won 4 games each. So, this has obviously been certainly a quicker turnaround than I think a lot of people expected. But a lot of people did think this was possible for the Patriots this year because of their schedule. And, I mean, to their credit, though, they've handled the teams that they have to handle. And that was one thing that I think everybody was kind of concerned about this year, is you got to go from being a bottom feeder team to a solid team. Maybe not a Super Bowl team, but kind of that next tier down, a team that can still take care of teams that they're better than. And the Patriots have done that this year. They haven't really, other than the Raiders maybe in week 1, you could argue the Steelers too in week 3 with all those self-inflicted wounds, but they haven't really had bad they haven't really had losses to teams that they should beat this year. So, you have. I thought they were going to have one yesterday to Atlanta, but you have to give them credit in that category. They've certainly got better there. All right, I'm going to talk kind of briefly about the 2025 World Series because that wrapped up on Saturday night. Actually, probably, early Sunday morning, actually, was when the game officially ended. Man, what a series. What a World Series that was between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. The team that I wanted, which was Toronto, did not win it all, unfortunately. But I just got to commend